Here we go.
Yeah, so I thought we could obviously discuss Ozempic because, obviously we have, a lot of people who are finding more and more extreme or desperate measures to engage with to lose weight. So Ozempic obviously has been identified as this. Let's just call it, and actually a few celebrities have been pumping on about it, which is not helpful because it essentially shuts off your hunger response. So it essentially puts you into starvation. Ultimately, it tricks the body into not being hungry at all. I don't actually know the mechanism behind how it works, but I do know that there are obviously some serious risks associated with it, and the speed at which it's been accepted, distributed, used is also quite concerning as well. Like, I heard about Ozempic from actually one of the clients at the gym, Jay, one of the guys who comes here, bigger guy. He's like, oh yeah, no, I'm on this thing. And granted, bro, he had lost a lot of weight. But what was interesting to note was he had lost a lot of energy. He's not consuming food. So, there's a lethargy associated with just not eating. And the other thing which was concerning was, although he had lost this weight, his performance in the gym was slipping. So the ability to use your muscles and the preservation of muscles probably also going to be problematic because you're just not eating. So you're not getting sufficient protein. So I thought, man, yeah. And again, as we approach election cycle in the US, I know that the National Institute of Health and along with the government are looking into funding Ozempic, publicly funding it as a let's just say as a response or a health product. So we're going to solve obesity by chemically starving people, which I think is a very, again, it's not addressing why we're getting fat and sick, right? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I thought it'd be good to have a conversation about it. Now, maybe much of our audience or the people we talk about don't even know what the hell it is, and unlikely to even engage with it. But I thought it could make for interesting discussion, and I know it's going to be a bigger topic as we go forward in time. So if it's on my radar and I'm hearing about it, I'm sure it's going to start creeping into other people's. Yeah.
Being a drug, you always have to know that there's going to be no free lunches. You're always going to have to sacrifice something. So to me, it seems sort of irresponsible for these influencers or celebrities to talk about their experience with it in such a positive light, because it's never going to be the same for, well, especially the average person, the everyday person doesn't have the resources or the support to counter the negative side effects that they may, the normal person may suffer.
Also motivation, Jay. You really are working on people's desperation. If, people's priority is I'm so desperate for weight loss due to the fact that I'm very overweight or I have food addiction, that I'm prepared to take drastic measures, even if they are filled with risks, in order to change that, right? And I know that's the primary mechanism at play there. It's this very strange human mentality. I'm prepared to put my entire physiology, my stomach, at risk to lose weight. I'm not prepared to eat real food. I'm not prepared to exercise, right? So it comes back to the same psychology of I'm not prepared to give up the things that are making me sick and do the things to actually make me healthy. But yeah, I suppose if all we could do today is maybe discuss, let's discuss it, shine a little bit of a light on it, and maybe I think there should be some discussions on some of the riskier parts of Ozempic. So, I can just do a quick Google search. I know that Ozempic is a peptide. Okay,
Yeah.
so it was
GLP-1 agonist.
So originally created for treatment of type 2 diabetes, Now it's become an obesity medication, but that's simply because ultimately, if we look at metabolic dysfunction, type 2 diabetes being a byproduct of obesity, metabolic dysfunction, so on and so forth, it's basically the same basket of things, right? So it's become popular because, well, not only was it designed for diabetes initially, but a lot of people who are struggling with obesity are finding that by taking it, it is turning off their appetite, so they are no longer hungry. And is that a very real part of obesity and food addiction? It certainly is. It's undeniable, but it has been uptaken and accelerated in terms of popularity and use without I think without some care and consideration for possibly some of the risks. So I'd actually like to discuss some of the risks and maybe just a few kind of, let's say, psychological thought exercises for people to consider. Do you know any of the what do you know about Ozempic?
When I looked it up, it said it was a GLP-1 agonist. Agonist being something that binds to a receptor and then causes the effect that the normal hormone or neurotransmitter would typically do. So in this instance, it's a glucagon-like peptide 1 agonist. So glucagon-like peptide 1 lead to a release of insulin. The release of insulin will take glucose from the bloodstream and bring it into the muscles and liver cells. And so what that's effectively doing, when you go and stick yourself with Ozempic or some other GLP-1 agonists, you're causing your body to take in more glucose from the bloodstream, which means that you haven't got as much actually accessible to you at that time, which is also going to prevent glucagon from being released. Glucagon brings the glucose from the muscles and liver into the bloodstream to use. So you can imagine that if you don't have enough glucose in the bloodstream, you're potentially going to be feeling tired and lethargic, or you're not actually going to be able to take in as much.
So it's removing is it removing our accessible glucose?
Yes.
Is that a simple way of saying it?
Yeah.
So let's say I want to use my body for energy or exercise. It's removing my ability to access that glucose for that.
Yeah, and somehow it is also leading to the downstream effects of, say, like feeling less hungry because digestion is much slower, which means like your gastric emptying, like your stomach is less able to actually clear the food, and the motility and the digestive tract is slower. So you've got better absorption of the food because it's in the tract for longer, and you're feeling full for longer because that food is all backed up in there. But yeah, it's causing all sorts of interesting effects down the line.
Some of the side effects I've been reading about or citing are after extended periods of time of use, food rejection or vomiting and things of that nature, and people struggling to keep food down when they're attempting to either reintroduce normal food or a little more food. And one of the long arm risks of that is if we have food rejection, you could actually be in quite a serious risk of malnourishment and going underweight and things of that nature, and actually get very fucking sick. If we are incapable of taking on nutrients, of preserving muscle and energy, we are going to become sick. So those are some of the things, and that's been cited as more common than you might think as well. This is not an uncommon side effect, it's a common side effect. Another reality of the weight loss is what I would define as non-selective. You're losing muscle at alarming rates as well, because it's incredibly, unless you're one of these people who are disciplined in taking, say, protein, but the kind of individual who's taking Ozempic is not the kind of person who has any discipline in their nutrition whatsoever. So for us to expect them to have the education and understanding and discipline to take the appropriate highest value protein while on Ozempic is just not realistic. We're talking about the population who has the poorest relationship with food, and you're expecting them to suddenly have a positive or constructive relationship with food. I don't believe that's the case.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like we're being very selective.
Oh, sorry, just hit that green button to the left of the door. There we go. Sweet ass. See you later. Sorry, just one of the. I'm just in the gym team. Yeah, sorry. Back to that train of thought there, Jay.
Yeah, just saying we're being very selective about what we choose to believe or talk about when it comes to this, because, like you
Mm,
said, like the type of people who are going to be using Ozempic in order to lose weight, they didn't get to that position because of their strict regimen. They've struggled. They've had trouble maintaining their weight because of, say, like an addiction to food, or like it's. I'm not saying it's challenging. Like it's been
mm.
like it looks horrible for people having to go through that because it's not like they want to keep eating. They don't
Correct.
tend to
Agreed.
enjoy it to the extent of just pure joy. It's trouble. Otherwise, they wouldn't resort to trying to take something like Ozempic in the first place. To expect them to
Yes.
also up their protein intake and exercise and yeah, like it's not realistic.
And then we're also looking at the incentives. The individuals who are being prescribed Ozempic are getting advice from individuals who are not prepared to provide the kind of advice that would start to improve their diet, start to improve their physical habits, start to improve other aspects of their life. So the types of advice and the types of people and consultancy and expertise that they are dealing with are either not influential enough to bring light to their lifestyle issues and they're prepared to resort to things such as therapeutics or pharmaceuticals as some sort of a solution.
Hmm. I'd say people are probably sick of hearing about lifestyle intervention. Like,
Too
yeah,
bad, Jay.
they're constantly being told to try harder and eat better and exercise because it's just is what it is. Like if you want to feel better, you've got to treat yourself better. Then
Correct.
yeah,
Surprisingly easy though. Surprisingly easy, right? Like, obviously we won't we won't point out the obvious today. We'll stay on a bit on task. Some of the other concerns with so for me, when I'm discussing things like okay, Ozempic, an extreme measure to weight loss, that's really what I'm calling it, an extreme measure to weight loss. People are not taking it. People are not taking it primarily as a result of hypertension or type 2 diabetes. They are taking it for weight loss. Let's just call it what it is. So, again, some of my other concerns, we are still failing to identify the issues that got the people into their state of obesity. We're failing to address the nutritional and behavioral habits that got them into obesity. So, if we are to possibly either have really, really negative consequences as a result of Ozempic, or we're going to stop Ozempic, then the same burdening issues of dysfunction and poor health will just simply return. So again, it's not solving anything.
the weight all comes back as soon as you stop. You're on it for good, essentially. But you're expected to be on it for good, which
It's just like
is
yeah.
a big moneymaker.
Mm. It's just like the bariatric surgeries, guys. So stomach stapling surgeries. 90% of people who have a bariatric surgery, a stomach stapling procedure, are back at or above the body weight that they were at prior to their procedure within 10 years. So when we're looking at long-term outcomes of health, how effective is it really? And again, it's the same. It's the same idea as the Ozempic, is that you have not changed the habits that got you there. You have not brought consciousness to the negative or destructive habits that got you there. And so, after a certain amount of time, those same habits still exist and they will continue to chip away at your well being over a period of time as well. So, yeah.
I don't know this for certain, but I would assume that you are going to negatively affect your metabolic rate, like your
Mm,
like the total the calories required will drop. I would assume because you're starving yourself. The mind doesn't know any different. You're starving yourself, putting yourself through that famine. You're probably going to be more sensitive to calories when you do start eating again, if you do start eating again or stop Ozempic.
Yep.
So it's not like you're truly going through an effective diet or eating management where you would, if you say if we wanted to drop weight in a healthy manner, you would want to cycle your calories. So you would drop your total caloric intake below your required needs gently so you can consistently lower your total weight. And then you would want to increase your calories up again at the same time as weight training or exercising so that your total required calories to supply to exist sort of come back up again. Well, don't go down as much. Because the more you drop weight, the more you go through the famine, the more your body's going to want to store fat.
Yep.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah, bang on. Additionally, when you're starving yourself, your ability to develop, preserve, and sustain muscle is also going to be compromised. So one of the biggest key determining factors of our metabolic function is the ability to stimulate and preserve our muscle mass. So your daily energy demands are going to lower. You're going to get weaker. And so totally agree. You're creating a perfect storm of malfunction if we are to come off the product. So it's kind of, again, the big concern is if we don't address our negative behaviors and we don't bring a conscious effort to the things that got us there, we may, what happens? Are we going to be able to stop the product to sustain it? I don't think so. So we could create a situation in which individuals are, again, they're completely dependent on it. And if you stop it, then all the negative consequences return. So I'm painting a picture in which I'm seeing just a great deal of risks from benefits-wise. It appears that all the benefit is in the short term. In the short term, boom, it's going to cancel hunger. Okay, great. Going to start losing weight. Great. In the mid to long term, looks bad to me, Jay. We don't have any long-term studies, but what we're stringing together some fair reason, which is perfectly suitable as far as I'm concerned. So if in the long run we're going to lose muscle mass, we're going to disrupt our ability to utilize glucose. We're going to dysregulate our metabolic system. We're going to mimic starving. We're going to create a whole soup of issues down the track. For an animal to turn off their hunger response, that's quite a significant manipulation of our physiology. Giants, So it's buzzy. But welcome to 2024. Welcome to 2024, Up is down, left is right, male is female, and now Ozempic is the answer. That's it's the wonderful world we're in.
It was only about half a year ago when the general public was against all things Big Pharma. And then it's almost like overnight, it's like Ozempic, the wonder drug. Let's all take it. Yep. And anybody who sees anything negative about it is just fat shaming.
It's fat.
Weird. It's weird.
What about all the body positivity people should be up in arms, Jay? Everyone's getting skinny. What are you doing? We all want to be. We should be celebrating fat.
I don't understand it. The message just keeps changing, and I don't know what anyone's thinking. It's probably just because we get the polarizing messages on social media. Chris Williamson, the Modern Wisdom guy, he posted something that I found interesting, saying that the people who are against the use of Ozempic, he believes, or he proposed that it's possibly because say we worked to achieve what we have got, we went through that effort, and for somebody to go and shortcut that is almost providing a false signal, like a false signal of who they are. And so we can't detect what type of person they are. Like, we want to know the people
Interesting.
who are fit and healthy because we want to know what type of person they are. Because to be a person like this, you have to have a certain selection of traits.
Yep. An Ozempic person, though, let me unpack a few things. An Ozempic person is not going to look muscular and strong. An Ozempic person may not even appear necessarily as fit. An Ozempic person is just a slimmer version of a very overweight and unhealthy person. So, what does Ozempic not address? It's not going to magically make you fitter. It's not magically going to improve your posture, make you stronger. It's not going to improve your energy management and utilization. So for those of us in the know, we're going to know anyway. But I do understand what you mean. From a signaling side of things, it's signaling that I'm a person capable of managing my weight or my health, so to speak, right? I think I would call that a low or a soft signal, in my opinion, Jay, because when it's normal to be overweight and obese, to be like is not really a high value signal, in my opinion, but I understand it. It's also like for those who are not aware, there's a giant movement in the use of performance enhancing drugs in young people in the gym. There is. Now that's another false signal, Jay, because when we've got all these young guys out there thrashing testosterone, thrashing anabolics, it's not a full false signal because work requires to be done, but there is a bit of a false signal in the sense that the development of this body is a result of natural means. So, yeah, totally get that. However, interestingly enough, because since we're on the topic of unpacking motivation, signaling, health, and so on, a lot of, despite all the risks and discussions, you will be absurdly surprised to see the new wave of millennial entrepreneurs and Gen Z entrepreneurs who are using the likes of anabolics as a holistic performance enhancer. What do I mean by that? What does high testosterone do to an individual, Jay? What does it do to me as an individual?
It drives up motivation and also
motivation. That's right.
Muscle. Yeah.
It drives up motivation. It drives up competitiveness. It drives up a little, I'm allowed to say this, aggression, or it drives up energy. You feel more virile. Now, in the competitive world, it would make sense to take something, right? If I wanted to be the best entrepreneur in the world, I don't give a shit about, L-theanine for focus. I want to be competitive. I'm going to get jacked up on anabolics, and that's going to make me very That's going to make me very competitive. From a standpoint of human interaction, if I'm dealing with individuals and I have high energy or more competitiveness and aggression, it's probably going to place me better in terms of performance. And it's not just in sporting performance, I might call it in anything that is in the fields of, let's say, performance and competition. It's likely to have some sort of carryover. So again, this is this is nuance, but guys, just go take a look at who's the guy from Amazon? Who's the old boy?
Jeff Bezos.
Look at Jeff Bezos. Go look at old photos of Jeff Bezos. Look at new Jeff Bezos. He got jacked up now, right? He's not on a vegan diet team, all right? Jeff Bezos is a smart man, all right? He's getting on the gear. He's getting pumped up, and it's probably going to help his energy, his focus, his competitiveness, and so on and so forth, right? So, yeah, testosterone has truly entered the competitive and corporate world, obviously, among other things, but that's an interesting thing. That time for another discussion on that one though. But yeah,
yeah, something that I found interesting about that drive and that increase in competitiveness is it's an increase in the socially acceptable competitive nature. Well, I shouldn't say socially acceptable. It's like the socially ingrained competitive nature. So if you're somebody who grew up and was taught, well, in your culture, it was seen that being an entrepreneur was your way of displaying masculinity, then you're going to be more competitive in that sphere. I know it's not as simple as that, but we'll use that as an example. Whereas if you grew up in a culture where physical aggression was shown to be a masculine trait, then you're probably going to be more physically aggressive. And to see those people who've grown up in a tougher background, whose parents may have been a bit more aggressive, might have biffed them around a wee bit, or their friends may have biffed each other around a bit, and that was your way of displaying like who was king, then you're probably going to get more aggressive in your everyday life. We see people who have taken a whole bunch of testosterone and have what they call roid rage. Chances are it's because that was something that was more selective for masculine behavior.
So I'll credit. This is a bit of an anthropological nuance and insight into it. I believe that a better way to look at it is that the males who display most physical and cognitive strength and aggression always find their way to the top. It is the cultural differences that nuance the display. So let me unpack that a little bit. If I were in Rome, my cultural display of strength and aggression would be in terms of my clout, my gravitas, and my status. If I was in a Mongolian tribe during the reign of Temujin, aka Genghis Khan, then my capability as a warrior would have been, so what we'd call a very visually forms and external forms of aggression, which would be direct warrior, would be of higher selection, but still based off of those same traits, which are at their core, strength and aggression applied to, let's say, direction, I suppose. Those are my 2 cents on that one, Jay.
Yeah. And as long as those people are the ones who are shown to display power within the group, then they are going to be more preferential mates. They'll be able to get more women, have more kids, because they're seen as the group to be a winner. And I'm sure we've all heard about the experiments where you take one mouse, put it in a tube, and when they fight, the one who wins the fight, their testosterone increases, and they're more likely to win the next fight. When you chuck another mouse in there, they get on like a winning streak because that testosterone's driven up. They want it more. That motivation to win goes right up. And so we're going artificially crank it up in people. We're probably going to create so-called winners.
Yeah, and that is at its correct, and that is competitiveness and winning. I mean, if that's a pretty motivating reason in and of itself. So this is that's why I would relate it to the likes of individuals in the competitive, let's say, business realms, like those who are in competitive or high performance realms are incentivized to take things that would increase their competitiveness and their perception of ability to win or ability, full stop. Okay, let's go off on a few tangents. So let's assume that, Ozempic, cool, that exists. What are some other possible alternatives to Ozempic that may be, I don't know, productive, useful, or comparative? Are there any other things that we could consider there, Jay?
Some alternatives to Ozempic, so like other drugs or
other protocols that could be just as effective without going down the traditional route of obviously address your goddamn meeting. I'm wondering when we're going to come full circle round to controlled fasting. There's that wonderful story of that I think he was like a Scotsman or something, Angus. Are you familiar with Angus? Here, I'm going to Google it right now. The longest fast in human history.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Here we go. Angus Barbieri. There we go. Yeah, I've looked it up before. It's fascinating. He fasted for 382 days straight. He subsisted on tea, coffee, sparkling water, and vitamins and electrolytes. He lost 125 kilos. And he kept it off for the rest of his life. So isn't that interesting? So one is chemically inducing a fast, Ozempic. One is just fasting. And I would say that the fast is obviously a fast is superior to it, but I'm not doubting it comes with its risk. But the interesting thing about the fast was he maintained the weight loss. So that's pretty interesting. So it clearly reprogrammed his entire physiology to cut the weight and readdress his metabolic system. So I think his body would have essentially reprogrammed itself to an extent. It probably would take some amazing discipline to actually achieve that. That's actually quite half the reason I'm impressed is like that would be hard to do. But he was also a very overweight man who managed to do it. So that's also pretty impressive.
I think it was a study. So it was a controlled environment. It was being looked after and fed the concoction of electrolytes and vitamins.
Frequently visiting Merrifield Hospital for medical evaluation. There you go. The photos are amazing. Like he's a big fat boy, and then you look at him, he's skinny. You wouldn't recognize him. Amazing.
When I started doing intermittent fasting and periods of short fast, it dropped my hunger significantly. I used to be one of those young guys that would just eat non-stop. Like I could never get full. And now, after fasting, I don't feel like I desperately need to eat anymore. I have control over my hunger. I'm not obsessed with it.
Yep. And that's a really important part of the fasting is what the fasting does is it brings consciousness to eating and it begins to reprogram appetite. I truly believe that whatever the mechanisms, whether we're talking about psychological expectations of insulin spikes, food, whether it's habits, whether it's our ghrelin response, whatever. What I do know is that fasting recorrects and adjusts what feels and appears to be a organic matter corrects your appetite response. Now, I mean, again, this these are obviously just our personal experiences. So, but for those who know me, I intermittently fast for years. And part of the reason for that is I've never naturally felt hungry in the morning. So I figured, well, why not just wait till I'm hungry? And it feels like there's something natural about feeling a little hungry and needing to feel hungry before consuming food. For those who are, a lot of young people who are trying to gain mass, obviously they often will overeat. So the proportion of fat they accumulate tends to maybe be a bit too much. You can intermittently fast and certainly maintain what I believe to be slightly better health, better regulation of your appetite, but you can also still maintain perfectly healthy muscle mass. That's another silly idea is that if I'm to intermittently fast, I'm going to lose muscle. Now, is it optimal if I'm a hardcore bodybuilder? Probably not. That's because a bodybuilder is theoretically overeating all the time. They're actually overeating. But if we're trying to get, let's say, the best of both worlds, we're trying to get health, function, and all those other traits, then yes, it's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Finding that optimal or that healthy state is often overlooked. We like to tell ourselves that we're going for health.
We're not.
we all want to be legend.
We say we have we all have an Adonis complex that we're chasing, and that Adonis complex, believe me, when it has nothing to do with health, nothing. That's rubbish. It's just lies. Keep going. It's not true. We all have an illusion that we're working towards, a fantasy that we're working towards, which could be ego-driven, this appearance that we are chasing, or even an idea that we're chasing, often a bit of both. I mean, health as a byproduct is a good thing, certainly. I'm not going to completely dismiss that, but I know that the deeper motivators tend to be much more ego-driven.
Yeah, definitely. Like I know myself personally, when I go to the gym, I go hard because I enjoy it.
That's right.
But I'm not getting the results that I typically could if I actually gave a shit about my eating schedule. If I pushed myself, like I said, to just eat constantly and make my whole life revolve around training, I would get great results. but I'm lazy and I don't care as much because I'm getting old and I just can't be bothered. So I'm not going to pretend like I wouldn't be happy if I woke up tomorrow with an extra 10 kg of pure muscle. That'd be great. I'd be stoked. But I just don't care enough to put that effort in because the reward is not high enough for me.
As Mike Mentor would say, you have to be motivated. And I mean that in the core sense of the word, not the modern 2024 lazy sense of the word. Motivation is actually it's in quite an intense state to be truly motivated. High motivation is a rare thing. It really is. It's a very rare thing. And it's actually quite hard to sustain. That's why we don't see. That's why you don't interact or see many exceptional people. Is because few people are highly motivated. And yeah.
So I wonder if it's not about the end goal and those who are motivated. Because the states where I've got the most done, where I've achieved great things, it's never been about the end goal. My motivation was purely in the moment. Like I'm doing the thing. And that's all that matters to me. I just want to keep getting back to the thing. Writing my project, the Human Operating Manual. Like all I could think about was, I need to get more information. Let's just keep doing this. Oh, I'm learning new things. Now I can add this to here, and I can move this here. And I would not want to sleep. I wouldn't want to eat either. I just wanted to focus on getting the work done. And then by the end of it, I'd produce something. But that wasn't ever the goal. Later on, when I'd want to put myself back into that state, it was always the desire of the end goal that I was craving, which would prevent me from actually getting back into that state.
So for the most part, the goal is the made-up illusion we make up to drive us toward a thing. It's an idea that we fundamentally manufacture that we believe once achieved will bring about a great deal of satisfaction, which it won't. But it's how the human operating machine works. We tell ourselves fantasies to put us into motion, which is like this manifest motivation to drive us towards these things. But for anyone who's actually ever achieved anything exceptional with their mind or their body, once you get there, you realize, oh, okay, so that wasn't as satisfying as maybe I thought. But it's the wisdom is going, oh fuck, what have I learned on the way here? And what you've learned is that's really where you're like, oh, that's where that wisdom was like, man, I've learned some stuff. That's cool. That's actually pretty satisfying, man. I've solved a few riddles and I've become a bit better at some things. That's pretty cool,
Yeah. Sort of crossing over into the way we think about learning now. Because the modern day way of thinking about learning is very focused and it kind of misses the point. Because the times where you learn the most are when you're so engrossed in life that you don't even realize you're learning.
Yeah. But yeah, we can go on about that one for days. Yeah, I still fundamentally believe that the deepest motivations are essentially driven by two very, very deep things, and one is the obsessive compulsions and interests that an individual holds, and that in relation to status and selective success. So it's essentially the incidence of me attaining alphaism as an individual combined with my deepest compulsive curiosities. So that's what drives motivation. And there is a little bit of nuance for the individual. For example, there are individuals who find, like, for example, my mate Steve, who loves his BJJ. He's obsessive about that particular sport. And as a result, his motivation is he's prepared to do all the bits and pieces in service of improving at said sport. And the same goes for, many other things. But underpinning that are the same biological drivers that everyone is conducting by for men, which is status and sex. So it's still driven by those same core factors of I need to be the man and have all the options, and then I'm also obsessed by this thing, and it's where those things, which is how
to tie all this back together. It's the same deal with the
the weight loss,
exogenous testosterone and the Ozempic. It's all just a giant status game.
Anyway, Ozempic team, for anyone who's looking at it, if you have a doctor who is actually pushing it and not prepared to look at other alternatives, you're at the wrong doctor. I think you should really reconsider your consultancy around health and well-being. You should really seriously look into how you're going to address your protein intake while on it. You should seriously ensure that you have some sort of a game plan to get off it in the mid to long term, so you're not riddled with potential risks of food rejection and vomiting. You should begin to at least bring some behavioral and conscious change to your life prior to using that, because it's not going to be a silver bullet. Yeah, and if there's literally anything else that you can conceive and consider prior to it, then that would be good. Start there. It might be as simple as you're not even going for one walk per day. So we won't get into lifestyle intervention. We know how lifestyle intervention essentially solves everything. If you're taking Ozempic, you're not here for lifestyle intervention. You're here to
Possibly not here for a long life either.
You're here to chemically induce starvation. So yeah.
I'd say if we weren't sure about this, you could just look up the side effects of it. That may sway a few people.
Cool. Yeah. What I said, we didn't really go deep. We'll wrap it up with a few of the side effects here, Jay. Scare a few people today.
All right. So we start you get inflammation of the pancreas. So pancreatitis. Same with thyroid tumors. That's a really alarming one that has been showing up.
Thyroid tumors. Okay. What else?
Kidney damage as well. Yeah. Then you've got all your basic ones like your nausea, vomiting, diarrhea.
So I guess the trade-off for losing weight is you're accelerating death. Cool. So hey guys, you're going to lose weight, but you're going to die sooner. So if all those things are having negative responses on your organs, then they're killing you. Those are destructive responses to your body. I know that obesity is killing you, or that really is it's a form of dying in a way, in terms of how it's destroying your physiology. But yeah, there's no difference to those things,
Yeah. And then there's the hypoglycemia, meaning like the low blood sugar. Blood sugar, you're gonna have headaches, you'll be anxious, be dizzy, confused. What else we got? Blurry vision. Yeah, you'll have vision changes.
So for all these people who are taking it, so all these diabetics taking it, right? They're going to get the same symptoms of diabetes. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So your quality of life is shit. Your longevity is shit.
Yeah.
But you're losing weight, so your superficial status will change. You might feel like it'll change, so maybe you'll have that. You'll feel more positive about yourself. But in the end, people can still tell that who you are based on your behavior. I don't know if it's really having that positive of an effect when you look at the whole picture.
For me, I'd be weighing up a whole lot of pros and cons, benefits and consequences, and having a serious think about that. I think just objectively, if we're going to pump ourselves up with hormones, I think you'd be more productive to just jab yourself up with testosterone and get pumped up and get your body to signal energy and muscle and vitality and the winning hormone.
Yeah,
the winning hormone.
That's a good point, actually.
That's why I win all the time, Jay. So everyone should just get pumped up on the winning hormone, and that would, if we were to look at the side effects of testosterone versus the benefits, right? We live it like our men today already are already exhibiting low testosterone. We're in estrogen-fueled environments. We live in an estrogen soup of microplastics, chemical sprayed foods. Half the boys want to be girls today, so we have a feminized, estrogen driven environment, and actually a lot of the solutions to that are at a very, very hormonally fundamental level is improving natural production, and raising the baseline production of testosterone for our boys would be a great start. But I'd also say it's possibly for women as well, Jay. I think that too much estrogen in the woman can wreak havoc as well. So yeah, I think yeah, as an alternative, you'd be far more productive to just get on the testosterone.
Yeah, if we're going to compete at them,
I'm very serious. Yeah, I'm serious, man. Yeah, just get on the cleanest form of testosterone, and then yeah, at least you'll feel good.
Pick your winning poison.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Why feel like shit if you're going to go to the grave sooner?
Why not feel awesome?
I feel amazing.
Yeah. All right.